like we need to think of some Power BI themed songs here.
I
We
know.
can put that on to the next webinar. Everyone, thanks for coming in. Playing a few songs here before we get started. We'll give everyone a couple minutes, just past the hour, and then we'll get started. Thanks for coming in, everybody. It looks like it's the top of the hour. We'll give people a couple more minutes here just to filter in, and then we'll get started. Alrighty. A few more people are trickling in. We'll wait about one more minute and then we'll get started here. Thanks everyone for coming. Alrighty, it looks like we are 3 minutes past the hour. We got a good number of participants in, so we will get started. Thank you for coming, everyone, to this Coffee with Chris series. This is going to be a special series that we have. We're kind of toying with some of the words here. thinking about it as Mark is your guy for Power BI. Today's session is going to focus all about general Power BI. We'll be laying a little bit about the foundation, talking about what Power BI is and isn't, and showcasing a little bit of what we can achieve with the dashboards and the capabilities that Power BI provides. As we go through this session today, if you have any questions, please feel free to put it in the chat. We'll have a Q&A session at the end that we can address any of those questions. Mark and I will be monitoring throughout the webinar today. So please feel free to put anything in there. This will be recorded and will be distributed out. And once we have it kind of cleared up and we can do our little bit of editing at the front so we don't get copyrighted for any of those songs. Before we get started, just please, everyone, let's know that this is a series that's going to be happening. So we'll start this series in a general introduction of Power BI. We'll continue this series throughout the next 2 months, really just breaking down all of the capabilities and the potential that Power BI brings. So with that, I want to introduce our Power BI specialist. Here on the call with us, we have Mark Stepp. He's one of our senior consultants here at Clients First and our guy for Power BI. Mark, you want to give a little introduction to yourself here?
Sure. Thank you very much, everyone, for attending. I've been in the Business Central and Vision space for over 20 years, with special emphasis on the finance, EDI, and inventory management area, and obviously working with our clients in reporting, whether that be with Jet Reports, Jet Analytics, and as we're going to show you today, Power BI. So I think you'll find this very informative and exciting, and thank you very much for attending.
Perfect. Thank you, Mark. So we're going to talk through a couple things today. Talk a little bit about traditional reports versus Power BI dashboards and KPIs. A little bit about what you can have in a sales dashboard. We'll kind of showcase the differences between a traditional static report and the potential that Power BI brings. We'll talk a little bit about data framework, understanding where is my data, how does it get into Power BI and the connections that are available, as well as Power BI desktop, developing and publishing reports that can be utilized by anyone in the company. We'll speak a little bit about the Power BI web service and then show a quick demo that Mark has put together on the Power BI dashboard setup and how we can put that forward. I want to emphasize before we get started here, all of these sessions will be free learning series for anyone who's attending the webinar here. Something that we want to put together here at Clients First, put out as much educational content as possible so that we're truly providing, I think, a clients first approach. So when we talk about traditional reporting, typically the reports that we can generate from the Vision to Business Central are static. They have a set group of data points that they can pull up, and you can typically set it to a range, whether that be a month, a certain set of customers, weekly open APs, as Mark has put in here, but it's a short-term action. These are micro reports. They're designed for quick operational staff to look at what's in the system and not necessarily interact with it. When we look at the difference then between standard reports and the Power BI dashboards, what we can see is that Power BI has a lot more expansive data sets and relationships that we can utilize. When we're thinking about dashboards itself versus reports, think about it really as that micro to macro perspective. Reports are micro. They showcase a set that we define in filters as we're generating those reports. Power BI is using all of the data that we have and showcasing it in a way that is easily understood for maybe some of the less technical people in your company. What Power BI also allows us to do here is combine multiple data sources. We can see, and we'll see here a little bit as Mark showcases it, that it's not fixed on a certain data set that we pull from and look at every time. We can look at a lot of different data sources And that allows us to get a more holistic view of our data that reports just cannot give us. At that last point here, dashboards generally do not include the same level of granularity as reports, but what they do allow us to do is see that broad 10,000-foot view and can drill down into that data if we want to see more in depth. That's something that we can do from those dashboards. But typically, we're thinking about this as how can we take the large amounts of data that a lot of companies are working with and put it into a format that is easily actionable and understandable. Mark, anything else you want to add here on this slide?
I think we're good. Continue. Yeah, Coda, thanks.
You got it. So this is just to showcase a little bit of what a standard report might look like. This is an outstanding sales order status. You can see that we have it set for, maybe a certain type of items or a customer that we have. So for this customer, we've pulled in our open sales orders. We can see the expected dates, the items that we're selling. We have a very generic look at what might be available here. And these are the kinds of reports that we can generate standard in Business Central. Looking into Power BI, we can start to look a little bit deeper into how we're transforming that data and creating visuals that we can use across the company to understand exactly what's necessary. And this is going to be the first break that Mark is going to be able to showcase here a little bit of what Power BI can actually do. So Mark, take over whenever you are ready.
Okay. Okay, fine. You should be able to see my Power BI report now. Confirm, Dakota.
I'm not seeing it yet. I think I'm still sharing my screen.
Okay,
Let
hold
me
on.
stop the share. There you go, Mark. Now it's
Okay, good, fantastic. Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
So to Dakota's point, looking at the expansive data set, this is at this point in the webinar, we wanted to show the group here a more sophisticated Power BI report that we've developed at Clients First. The data set that we're looking at is a Cronus database, so it's not so expansive, meaning that there's a lot of data in, and you'll see the year 2024. But the purpose of this section of the webinar is to kind of give you a sample of what is the potential for Power BI reports. Just to note that what Dakota spoke about, you can actually combine multiple data sources here. They actually can be in different databases if need be. And as you see here, this is really coming from a local Business Central database, but you can combine as many different data points as needed. As we look at this dashboard, and it's a report of multiple tabs, just to show you the potential. This is a sales scorecard dashboard. We were looking at trends of whatever the data set may be of year over year, month to month of sales here. We've broken it down by salespeople. So if you have salespeople, you can look at their performance relative to the other salespeople. What's nice about Power BI is that if you actually click into a visual, it will actually filter the visual as we go along. Down on the bottom right-hand part of the report, I have item category. Again, shares, miscellaneous, and if we click on any of the parts of the visual, it'll actually filter the rest of the report as needed. I'd like to show you a couple more of the potential reporting aspects of this report. We also have I'm going to the tab called Sales Year Over Year. Here, what we're doing is we're highlighting the delta between the years. If you look at the bottom right-hand area, we're looking at what the difference of the sales of between 2023 and 24. If there's a negative trend, so it would be highlighted, and it would in red, so it stands out on the report. And we also have in this report not only the delta as an amount, but the delta as a percentage, so you can get the relative change in the percent. Power BI offers great visuals. So if you're looking at sales by territory or by country or by region, you can actually promote your sales into a map to look at sales and where are my sales happening, you know, in according to that map. I have this called sales by state, but it could be by country, or it could be Europe, could be Asia, or wherever your sales are. Moving along to the sales by top customers, here what we're showing is the sales by customer, again by year, ranked highest to lowest. But even within a customer, Power BI will allow me to go down, expand one level down as I drift down here. So I'm looking at the sales by the Canon group, but by item category, to looking at what in broad strokes this customer has bought from us. And then I can even go further into the actual items that they bought, and then the relative amounts of, you know, per customer. And of course, I can go back to the highest level. So that's sales by customer. And of course, I have different filters on top, which we can slice and dice our data and take a look at that in a more meaningful manner. As we go to the top sales by items, it's the same data, but we're going to view it from this item sales perspective, ranking the highest to the lowest. And also, again, here, as you know, the visual allowed me to drill down to which customers actually bought the item of the highest ranking. This is 1976. Hotel Festudisi is the highest, and so it's more meaningful, and I can get down to root data. And lastly, I have a tab here for sales returns. Maybe we can spot trends of quality control issues of items that were returned. So this is just a sample of a BI report. The world is very open here. You could potentially use it to do a dashboard. Let's say if you're on a warehouse, open picks by user, or if you're on a manufacturing facility, open production orders and the process and the sequence of what's due when. So there's a lot of potential between different reports, but it's not as Dakota mentioned, it's not the micro level, it's more of a macro level trend setting analysis of trends. Okay, so that's the showcase of a typical report. Back to you, Dakota.
Perfect. Thank you, Mark. And again, if there's any questions, any follow-ups that you want to have, please put them in the chat, and we'll address them at the end of the webinar today. So we touched a little bit on, you know, some of the visuals, some of what we can generate using Power BI. Now let's talk about how we're actually getting that data and how we're setting it up. So Power BI, you know, pulls data sources, as you saw, as Mark kind of showcased there. It can pull from multiple different databases. You know, we can route them into the same Power BI report. What we're going to touch on a little bit here are web services. So within Business Central, we're setting up select queries for, you know, whether that be our Power BI GL budgeted amount, item purchase list, item sales list. Each of these queries will pull that OData into Power BI and give us that kind of source from Business Central. Mark, any explanation here on web services that you maybe can give the more technical people in the crowd?
There's also APIs that we'll be showcasing later in the video on the demo, how you as an end user can take advantage of the Power BI reporting immediately. So there's not just the queries of the typical web services, but now Business Central actually has APIs available. Perfect.
Thank you. So when we're thinking about configuring this from the Power BI desktop, Mark showed this a little bit in the sales dashboard, but we're actually connecting directly to our Business Central instance here. You know, there's a lot of different connections that we can have set up, but with kind of the Microsoft stack, our capabilities are really connecting directly to our Business Central instance. And we'll see here in a little bit with the demo, you can select the exact company and the exact area of which you want to pull that data from. Publishing a report, again, it just occurs through the kind of publish action on Power BI. This is just taking that data that we have and updating the report as needed. Mark, I believe we can publish these on some regularity. We can have these publish automatically or have these reports publish anytime that someone accesses them. Are there any kind of comments that you want to have here on publishing the reports?
So we'll show the next slide. We publish the report. It's actually published to the Power BI web service, which is where you would distribute it to your end user group would actually access that. Truth be told is you can use the Power BI desktop, which is free. You can use that as a reporting tool, but the more sophisticated sharing would be with the Power BI web service, where the developer would develop the report in the Power BI desktop, step one. Step two, they would publish it. It would go down to the Power BI web service, and there the user community would then access, your internal user community would access that. You can also set up the data refresh on the Power BI web service, which is a maximum 8 times per 24 hours. And therefore your reports would be up to date as per the last refresh.
Perfect. Thank you, Mark. So along with that, as Mark was saying here, the Power BI web service portal, users are accessing their reports via that portal. Think about this really as, a CEO might not be the one who's developing and generating these reports, but wants to be able to see their sales, inventory, and purchase dashboards. Each of those can be done through the workspaces, as Marcus pointed out here. Looking into each of these reports, you can simply click on them and it will pull up the whole dashboard, similar to what Mark had showcased with our sales dashboard earlier. So Power BI has a lot of functionality. We've showcased it from the Power BI angle, but what it also allows us to do, being a part of that Microsoft stack, is to embed itself within Business Central. So you can have Power BI reports pull up on the role center page of Business Central, specific to certain roles that you might have, so that maybe a CEO is not necessarily going to access it through that portal. They're just accessing Power BI and they want to see a quick visualization of some of the reports that we have generated. That can be done through embedding these Power BI reports into Business Central. Again, here we're choosing from a list of the reports that we can use on our workspace and put them into Business Central. Just thinking again about, we have a lot of functionality within Power BI. Not only that, we have Power BI functionality in Business Central. Quick thing on licensing here. Mark touched on this a little bit, that the desktop can be accessed by anyone. We typically recommend the Power BI Pro. Will allow people to create their dashboard and do some of that development work with the web service. Mark, any additional comments here on the licensing?
Right, so we wanted to put this slide into our webinar today just to give you a taste of the pricing. As Dakota mentioned, the Power BI desktop is free. Users can also sign up for the web service, and there's a free licensing for that. Obviously, there's limitations to that, which you can only, it's very limited in the ability to share or to, it's really a limitation in sharing. The next level would be the Power BI Pro license, which gives you full access. And the highest level, which is probably not relevant to most of us on this call, would be the Power BI Premium. That's for very, very large organizations. But just to mention, there can be a strategy here, meaning that a lot of our clients are not, when they first get into Power BI, are not ready to make that commitment to the $10 per month per user. So we suggest to them that they developed and and review Power BI reports in the Power BI desktop to ensure that there's value to the organization. Then once there's value to the organization, they'll also see the value to the Power BI web service and publishing there. So you can go step by step. You can get the free license, the free licensing, or you can go to the Power BI Pro. It's a little complicated on day one, but there's a lot of different options. And if you're not ready to make the financial commitment, there's the Power BI desktop option for you.
Awesome. And again, throughout this series, we're going to be talking about some of the tips and tricks, some of how we use Power BI. So if this isn't making a ton of sense for you, or you can't see how this might fit within your organization right now, please stay tuned. We're going to kind of continue throughout the series to hopefully give you as much information and resources about Power BI as possible. Again, our side, all free learning series for us. This is just our hope to kind of educate on some of the licensing. So with that, I'm going to jump into a demo that Mark has recorded here. We're going to touch on it, and then we'll kind of talk through any additional questions that we might have here.
Come off the slide presentation, and we're going to go into the Power BI desktop. Now, I've already installed the Power BI desktop and have opened it up. So what I'd like to do here is I would like to create a sales analysis report. And to do that, the first step would be to get the data. So as I click on get data, you'll notice there's a lot of different connectors that are available. There's web or data. What I'm going to do is actually connect into my Power BI Business Central SaaS database. So I'm going to type in Business Central. Here it actually comes up a list. It's part of the master list of the defined data source, the data connectors. I'm going to highlight Dynamics 365 Business Central, and I'm going to connect in. You'll see now that it actually lists the databases within the Azure Active Directory that I have access to. I'm going to use in the general use. I actually have my own little company within Clients Versus SaaS demo area. I'm going to use Cronus-MS for Mark Step. I'm going to click into what's available, and I'm going to use a standard API. And here, what we're going to do is we're going to actually use the item ledger entries. I'm going to click on item ledger entries. And what's interesting is that Power BI will let you, before you actually choose to load it, it will actually upload a sample data set so you can see the columns that are available. For example, item number is available, posting date is available, source number, which is the customer, and quantity and sales amount. So for this example, we'll load this in, the item ledger entries. And from here, what we're going to do is we're going to create a matrix. We have visualizations that are out of the box from Power BI that we're able to use. What we'll do in this demo is we will create a matrix of looking at item sales year over year, and we'll look at a pie chart of customer sales. So step one, I'm going to click into the matrix visualization. And I'm going to actually open up my data set for the item ledger entries. Here, what we're going to do is we're going to add the item number to the rows. We're going to open up the posting date hierarchy, and we'll do year for the columns. And lastly, we'd want sales amount on the values here. Okay. And within that visual, we can now sort by the sum of the actual value, and where therefore it'll actually load in and sort highest to lowest. Okay, we'll expand that up, and we'll position the visual. Secondly, we'll take a look at a pie chart. Oops, have to come off the visual first. We'll create a new pie chart. We'll move that into position. Here, what we'll do is we'll do the source number, which is in the database, the customer number. And then again, we'll do the sales. We'll do the sales here. And now I have a pie chart of customer sales. Obviously, looks like customer 1000 is the highest. What's actually nice is I click into the visual to any part of the pie chart. It will then actually filter the other visuals that are on the page. Now, I have prepared ahead of time. I just want to show you from a formatting point of view. I have a visual here. I'm going to actually use the format painter here. We'll come over here and we'll click here, and it'll actually format. My painter will format the visual here for me. And what I'll also do is I'll add a title to the. I'll add a title. I'll copy over title. We'll paste it here, and we'll call this my webinar sales analysis report. And then we'll look at sales. Okay, so you can see within 3 to 5 minutes, as long as you can whiteboard the data that you need, you can create stunning visuals and begin your Power BI journey. But lastly, we could then save this and distribute to our other users, where they would we would access the report by opening up the Power BI desktop. Or on the next level, if we sign up for the Power BI web service, we would actually publish it, and users would access it by opening up the web, by logging to the Power BI web service.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Mark. So getting back into the slides here, we're going to end really on this final slide, this final thought. I'll let Mark speak a little bit about how he's kind of thought about this and put it forward. But really, we're thinking about Power BI as something for the future of business managers, understanding exactly how they can use it, and where it might be really for the future of business as a whole. So Mark, talk through this a little bit, please.
So there's a lot of talk today about AI and ChatGPT and the future of business and business managers. This caught my eye as I read through the Columbia Business School quarterly magazine dedicated to the digital future. And with the bottom line is that the AI and ChatGPT they're not going to replace the managers per se, but what it will kind of demand is that managers begin to take a greater role in looking at their data, looking at analyzing data, and come to a business decision. So there's going to be more emphasis and needs for reporting, and particularly in the trends analysis area.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mark. Really, again, thinking about Power BI as a way to have a macro view of the data in your system and be able to quickly see through visualizations and through matrices, as Mark had showed, what needs to be acted upon, what data we care about, and what really we want to see for the operation of our business. Any questions that anyone has, please feel free to put it in the chat, we'll pause here just for a minute. I haven't seen really any come through as I've been kind of monitoring throughout. But if there's any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat now. I will again highlight and say that looks like pivot tables on steroids. It is a bit, yes, the matrices allows us to really create a lot of those pivot tables on steroids. I think that's a good way to say it, Dennis. Anything else here? I will say though as well, it's pivot tables and so much more. We have the visualizations and pie charts and everything else that we can be working with.
So we have a next question. Does this work only for Business Central or NAV or older versions? So I think this is a very good question. Power BI is very agnostic in data. As during the demo of the creating of the sales analysis report, I illustrated the different connectors. So Power BI has spent a great deal of effort to creating generic data connectors. I think they're certainly about 50. I don't know if they're at 100 yet, but it's not specific. This webinar, although it's Dakota and I work in our Business Central practice at Clients First, it's really agnostic, meaning it can get almost any data source that you can get a hold of. It is available, and what's unique is it can be multiple data points from multiple data sources. Meaning, I could, if I had there are some Power BI reports that are powered on Excel as the data source. For whatever reason, that's how they operate in the company. But it could be SQL database. It could be the Business Central database, or it could be even again our other practices such as SAP Business One SAP. So it's very agnostic in that area.
Another question here, Mark. Can you use Jet reports and convert them to Power BI reports / dashboards?
So the answer to that question would be it doesn't really convert. It won't really convert, again, unless you want to use the Jet report as the data source, the Excel data source. Then you could use that and then bring it into Power BI with the visuals. So, but as Dakota mentioned before, we have to differentiate between the traditional reporting, which is Jet reports, which is going to show you, 50,000 lines or 10 or 1,000 lines of your sales orders that are open, as opposed to more of a macro level of the matrix tables or pie charts. So it doesn't convert directly, although you can use it as a data source if needed.
Thank you. Another question that came in, what are some of the cons of having these reports connected to Business Central?
So I believe the question would be, does it affect performance? We haven't seen that so far. There is a limit. It's interesting. There is a limitation on the Power BI of 1 gigabyte. However, that also can be through licensing, can be expanded. But if there is a performance issue, then what you can do is run the refresh at night to mitigate any of those issues.
Yeah, I would think that that's really the only con is slight performance issues, and that's really if you're handling a lot of data into those reports and trying
It has to be
push
a lot of data, right?
Exactly, a lot of things there. These are all great questions. Thank you for submitting them. Any other ones that we have before we wrap up here? Okay, I'm not seeing any. You can, of course, ask us any as you like. Contact information for some of our key people here. Oh, I'm going to say one more question from that we just had come in. You mentioned reports refresh only 8 times per day max. Is there any way to refresh on an hourly basis?
So that's a good question. I don't know the exact answer to that, if you can get that expanded, but for most companies, if you would begin at 9 o'clock and expand till 5, you'll have that hourly window. I think the other approach to this question would be, when it comes to the sales analysis report that I showed you, it probably wouldn't, refreshing every hour probably wouldn't make such a big impact on that type of report. Where it can make an impact would be the example I gave, would be if you have open picks on a warehouse and looking at, okay, what's open, we've got 50 for the day, and what's open on that, or perhaps production orders. There are other solutions we could offer on that. We have offered where they would do it every 15 minutes. I don't think it would go down every 15 minutes. It'd have to be every hour. You just have to structure it during the day that, again, if you started 8 to 6, maybe 2 hours during lunch, you wouldn't refresh or so. And that's how you'd have to offer it that way. Good question.
We'll do one more here. Where are these data sets stored? Where it stores these data sets within Power BI? Is it stored on the client side or within a server?
So if you're using the Power BI desktop, if you're just using that exclusively, the data will be pulled into that file physically. But when you publish it, so then the refresh on the web service is going to be stored in the web service, cloud per se. And so that's where that is then stored. Good question.
And then I think saw one more come in. Can you use multiple data points while combining databases?
Yes, you can. Yes, and as a matter of fact, on our deep dive session, we'll look at actually how to combine tables together within the same database. But that can, by extension, it doesn't really matter if it's the same or different database. It's really ELT, extract, load, and then transform. So what you're doing is in Power BI, behind the scenes, is you're extracting the data into Power BI, loading it, and then transforming it. So so it's combining data tables, and it doesn't matter if it's the same database or multiple databases.
Perfect. And that is a great segue for our next couple of sessions here. The next one that we have is our Power BI development deep dive. That's what Mark was just saying. I'm talking about how we're going to make those connections, and then following up with that, we'll do some Power BI tips and tricks. So please feel free to reach out. Make sure that you're on our email list for having these to come out. Thank you all very much for coming today, and we appreciate the comments, the questions. Power BI, I think, is new and exciting for a lot of us here. We're very grateful to have Mark on our team. He is, again, our Power BI guy. So keep that in mind. If you remember anything, just remember Mark is the guy for Power BI. Thank you, everybody. Hope you all have a great day.
Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great day.